Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia. Today, recording not from the Spinster's Library, aka my office, but instead from my living room sofa, just for a change. And I realised that I haven't actually spoken about books in a while on this channel, so I thought I'd do a quick currently reading type video where I just chat about the books that I am currently reading. I'm just coming out of a gigantic summer reading slump, which is why I didn't do a wrap-up for August, I believe. There's probably not going to be one for September, because I just haven't finished enough books to talk about. But I am kind of getting back into the swing of things, and I've got 4 books on the go that I want to talk to you about. This is, of course, the week before the start of Victober, and in Victober I really want to focus on just reading Victorian literature. So I'm hoping to finish at least some of these books by the end of the month. Speaking of Victorian literature, I have just released a new batch of cats and classic literature inspired merch, and this batch is all about Victorian literature. So the designer I work with and I have come up with 3 adorable designs that are scenes from Victorian literature, but with cats instead of people. If that sounds like something you're into, then go and click the link in the description box to have a look at the items, and maybe you'll like them as much as I do. But let's get to the books. So the book that's been in my currently reading for a while, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in at least one previous currently reading video, is A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. And I am still only about halfway through that, because this is just not the sort of book that I will read cover to cover. So this book, which is a mid-century dystopian novel, quite heavy to digest, both in terms of language and in terms of subject matter, is something that I kind of dip in and out of, and I read a chapter here and a few pages there, and I know eventually I will get through this book. My edition has a glossary, and I've found out that not all editions have a glossary, but I am very glad that this one does, because I keep dipping in and out of it. I do tend to forget the words, the slang words that I used in this book. If you're not aware, A Clockwork Orange follows a teenage boy named Alex as he goes about his life of violence and destruction in a dystopian, kind of Soviet-inspired future. The second novel that I'm currently reading, and this is the first and so far only novel that I have actually accepted a free review copy of, is God's Children by Mabli Roberts, and this is published by Hono Press, which is an independent Welsh publisher of women's fiction. So I live in Wales, so I've been interested in that publisher for a while, so when they contacted me about a review copy for a piece of historical fiction, I was all over this. And I'm about halfway through it. This follows a woman named Kate Marston, who I believe was a historical person. I've so far not given into the urge of Googling her name, because I don't want spoilers, even if this is a real person, and again, I'm pretty sure it is. I don't want to know what happens to her. And she is on an exploration of the Arctic in the search of a cure for leprosy. This is set in I believe the late Victorian era, late 19th century, and Kate Marston is a nurse, and this book is very fragmented in a way, because it puts together different timelines. So some bits of it are scenes from her early work life as a nurse in New Zealand, and then some scenes are from her late adulthood when she reflects back on her earlier life, and then some scenes are from her actual expedition. So, very interesting book so far. I'm not sure if I get on with the fragmented type writing, but the main character is interesting enough to keep me going, and I do want to know what happens to her. The third novel that I'm currently reading is on my Kindle, so I can only show you this red cover of the Kindle. And I'm currently reading Night and Day by Virginia Woolf on that. And this is part of my 4 Centuries project, in which I read a book each from 1719, 1819, 1919 and 2019 this year. And Night and Day by Virginia Woolf is the 1919 read. This is the first piece of fiction by Virginia Woolf that I've ever read. I've recently finished her essay, A Room of One's Own. I did a separate video about that, so I'll link that in the description box as well if you're interested. And Night and Day is one of her early works, and I've heard that it is very different to her later and more famous novels. But I'm reading it anyway because it was published in 1919 and because the subject matter is quite interesting. It seems to me like quite a Jane Austen-esque type setup. So following a young, rich, privileged, upper-class lady named Catherine. And I've only just started this book, so really can't comment on plot much at all, because so far what's happened is that she's had a fairly boring tea party. But I understand that we kind of really get into the life of this character and through her get some sort of commentary on the sorts of things that Virginia Woolf likes to comment on: gender, status, wealth, privilege and society. So yeah, quite interesting so far. It's a rather long book, so I'm sure that there is much more to discover. I hope it keeps my interest because so far it's a good start. And finally, the fourth book I'm currently reading is The Book of Images by Raina Maria Rilke. This is a bilingual edition of his poems, or some of his poems, and I am about a third of the way through that. So this is the poem that I'm currently on. Well, I suppose the one that I'm going to be reading next. And I am one of those people that do not get on with poetry in general. So I am pleasantly surprised by how much I'm enjoying Rilke's poetry. And once again, I'm immensely grateful to Andrea from Infinite Text, who sent me this book, who posted it to me. She knows me very well indeed, because this language really does speak to me. And I'm not sure if that's because the poems are in my mother language, which is German. So I'm reading the German half, not the English half. Or if there is something about his poems that speak to me in a way that previous poetry just hasn't managed to. Although I have to say that I have enjoyed Goethe's poetry as well in the past, so maybe there is just something about the language of German that makes it so easy for me to get into this type of poetry. I was planning to read this in August, and I was planning to get through one poem a day, but I have not been that disciplined, so I actually keep this book on the back of the sofa, so I will just occasionally pick it up, read a poem or two, and then put it away. I think that's a fine way of getting through a book of poetry. So that was my currently reading. Like I said, I'm still reading very slowly. I'm still kind of not fully in the swing of burning through books. I haven't looked at my Goodreads challenge for ages because I'm probably something like 25 books behind on that. But I'm enjoying literature again, and that makes me happy. So it might be a while before you get reviews for the books that I'm currently reading, because I'm still reading very slowly and not very much at all. And I will take a break from all of these books for Victober if I don't finish them by the end of the month. So there's also that. Anyway, nice talking books to you again. Thank you for watching. Bye.